Chapter 1873 Allocating Resources. Zhang Yi waved his hand and said, "It's up to you. But if you want to stay, go and say hello to Zhu Zhang and the others. And you have to help me with the work." Deng Shintong smiled and said, "That's easy. I believe Zhu Shuai won't have any objections. He has a problem with me." Zhang Yi laughed softly, then shook his head, not taking the matter too seriously. The subsequent changes in Fremon's life were beyond everyone's imagination, and his gains were incredible. When Zhu Zheng found out about this matter later, he would definitely feel resentful that Zhang Yi did not agree to take Zhu Yu with him. But so what? In the face of absolute strength, Zhu Zheng had to hold back his thoughts. Captain Bailey Chongqing and others came over and immediately reported the two major infrastructure changes to Zhang Yi. Among the Qingpu group and the Yangxin group, 20 people were found to have suddenly awakened their special abilities within one day. Just this morning, 7 more were discovered. Zhang Yi was not surprised at all. Normal. And after that, your strength bottleneck will be loosened. Now all you need to do is pray to God. Because perhaps one of you will break through the life level limit and reach the Ypsilon level. Zhang Yi couldn't imagine how valuable the 14.8 billion spiritual essences of the Yihan clan were. Because that is a second-generation human being that even the creator is extremely satisfied with, and regards him as his own son. Because it is too perfect, it has discovered the true meaning of the world, and is unwilling to reproduce. As a result, the spirituality of all later species was intentionally weakened by the creator. By the time of the first generation, that is, the present human beings, their spirituality had already been greatly reduced. So when those 14.8 billion pieces of spiritual essence are released, the entire planet will usher in a huge change. This is an unprecedented event. Zhang Yi's words were light and casual, but they excited every alien present. Pa. Zhang Yi patted his hands and raised his voice. Okay, the next most important task is to rebuild the Tianhai fortress. Karen, you are responsible for the overall command, and everyone must obey her orders and go to work. Kuo Ran raised his right hand to the position of his temple. Zhongcheng. Bailey Chongqing said quickly, "Our Fueying troops will definitely obey the orders of His Excellency the Supreme and fully cooperate with Miss Liu in her work." Zhang Yi waved his hand. Tianhai City is not short of workers. Bailey, you still have another task to do. That is to retest the talents of all the people in Tianhai City. See how many people have mutated and how many have undergone secondary mutations. Select those with talent and add them to the Fukage Force Reserve. Bailey Chongqing nodded and agreed. Deng Shintong came over with a smile, pointed at his nose and said, "Your Excellency, please assign us some work. We can't just sit here and do nothing." He and the members of the God team are all very capable, and Zhang Yi has a rough idea of the purpose of choosing to stay here. He and Yang Xinxin were the only ones in the world who knew about what happened in Chernobyl. In the eyes of others, the day when Yichigel reappears in the world, a terrible disaster will break out in this world. Deng Shintong felt that it was safest to stay with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi didn't point it out, but just said to him, "Your Deng technology can open a branch in Tianhai City. It's time to take over your technology and use it." 3 years into the last days, the whole world has been actively researching supernatural powers. Among them, the most cutting-edge project is the study of the spirit of sacrifice. They are eager to crack this kind of thing and develop technology. Once a breakthrough is made, they can instantly become the most powerful country in the world. Zhang Yi knew what that was. Now is the best time to collect the Yihan clan's spiritual essence as it spreads throughout the world. Deng Shintong said without hesitation, "Of course, right? You are the major shareholder of our Deng group, so this is the way it should be. If you want to stay in Tianhai City, you must have a letter of surrender." Under Zhang Yi's arrangement, the reconstruction of Tianhai Fortress began. This process will take some time, mainly because Liu Qian needs to remake all the materials of the fortress. But for her who has already reached the Ypsilon realm, it is not a problem. After finishing the general arrangements, Zhang Yi brought his core team members to the temporary residence. Although it was a temporary structure, its comfort and luxury were no less than the original shelter. In this room, there are no Bailey Chongqing, Deng Shentong, and others. After all, Zhang Yi still couldn't trust them 100% now. They are still the same team members as before. Even the big Totoro and the frog were able to listen in, but they seemed to have no interest in what Zhang Yi and the others wanted to talk about. Zhang Yi sat in the middle of the living room and first recounted everything that happened after the light gate yesterday. Fatty Su, Uncle Yu, Mu Yan, and Zhou Haimei, who were originally worried, were surprised and happy when they heard the words. They were stunned for a long time, absorbing a lot of truth in a short period of time, and understanding the truth of the world, which shocked them greatly. Uncle Yu came back to his senses after a while, took a deep breath, and said, "It's really shocking. Is this the birth of the universe and the universe? Those myths passed down by the old people, it turns out that many of them are true. Is this to warn future generations? Perhaps in the future, our stories will become legends, and we will be praised as gods." Zhou Haimei patted her chest and said in a relaxed tone, "That's great. I was worried that I would have to fight again." Fatty Su's face was shaking with excitement. "Fuck, boss, you are awesome. It has to be you. This way, we don't have to think about attacking the fort and running away." Zhang Yi shook his head. "No, things are more complicated than you think. The more I understand this world, the greater my sense of crisis becomes. According to the Ihan tribe, the end of the world cannot be reversed. More than 99% of the human world will perish, and only a small number of people may survive." He looked at Lu Karen. "Karen, I'm sorry to trouble you here, because from now on, we must always be prepared to escape. During the reconstruction of Tianhai Fortress, we need to consider the potential problems. In addition, we must also put the space shuttle plan on the agenda." He crossed his eyes and said seriously, "Of course, going underground is the easiest way. We just need to consider whether the fortress can withstand the high temperature and pressure under the sea, and then find a stable area. Don't worry about drilling. I can take you directly to dive. But if it's a space program, then the requirements for the spacecraft are very high. After all, I'm just a mortal, and I can't do the steps of crossing the void with my flesh body." Zhang Yi said with a smile. Lu Keenan carefully recorded it down. "Brother, these things are not difficult to do. On the technical level, after obtaining the technology of mechanical civilization, our overall technical level has been improved by hundreds of years. As long as there are enough materials and enough workers, I can make these things within half a year." Only a blue three-dimensional projection appeared in front of her, with dense mathematical formulas on it. "What we lack most is energy. If we want to build a building that can stay underground or in space for a long time as a long-term fortress, we need to consider the issue of energy supply for at least 100 years. Zhang Yi crossed his arms, frowned, and asked, "Isn't the energy in our body enough now?" Lu Karen shrugged. "After all, we have a lot of money. Of course, if we only consider our own survival and don't consider the survival of future generations. And if we don't build a mechanical army, then the energy supply is more than enough." Zhang Yi had planned to repair those mechanical life forms and then use them as combat arms. Now it seems that it is obviously impossible to repair the nearly 100,000 mechanical life forms. He said to Lu Karen, "The mechanical life form repair plan will be put last for the time being. Leisurely build a new Tianhai fortress and upgrade all weapons. The second priority plan is the spacecraft. The third priority is the mechanical life form. Let's do it in this order." Lu Karen nodded. "Collect." After arranging these things, Zhang Yi put his hands on his thighs and patted them hard. Then he focused his attention on Uncle Yu and his friends, and his expression became much more serious. Now, an important step has been reached. Everyone looked at Zhang Yi, and even their breathing slowed down. Zhang Yi said calmly, "The world will usher in a new reshuffle after the end of the world. Various species and creatures will mutate in large numbers. More and more powerful people will appear in the world. In order to cope with possible challenges in the future, we must continue to improve our strength. As he spoke, he reached out and took out two things from the alien space and placed them in his palms. It was during the last trial level that the sacrificial spirit was trapped from the other two teams through strategy. This matter will definitely be discussed by those people later. But Zhang Yi didn't care about that. First of all, he did not break his promise. Secondly, he was very sure that these two sacrificial spirits must have come from alien races. Because of human forces, it is impossible to keep these precious things. If they were there, they would have been gone long ago. In fact, it was just as he thought. One of the two sacrificial spirits came from the chief of the dragon clan, Wan, under the dragon vein of Qinling Mountains. The other came from the mysterious race from the deep sea. He gave the sacrificial spirit like a yellow fruit. The spirit of sacrifice is the purest energy in the world and the origin of all things. After absorbing it, the body's spiritual essence can become stronger and purer, and the feedback to the material world and the body's gene lock is opened. If it is only used to increase the ability index, it would be a bit of a waste. Zhang Yi thought about it again and again. He had already experienced the baptism of the spiritual ocean. The spirit of sacrifice was of use to him, but creating two more Ypsilons would obviously be much more cost-effective. So, for the sake of his partner, he decided to take it out. Seeing the spirit of the ritual, most of the people in the room's eyes lit up. Even if it has become flammable, such as Ypsilon, it will be attracted to this substance from the bottom of its soul. The big Totoro and the frog also turned their heads, their eyes sparkling, as if they were looking at treasures. Nothing can resist the temptation of life level jump. Here are two sacrificial spirits that can allow two people to reach the realm of Ypsilon. I decided to give one of them to Kur. Zhang Yi did not hesitate at all, and directly gave a sacrificial spirit of better quality to Zhou Boer. As a girlfriend who had been with him for 3 years, sharing life and death with him, there was no doubt about this approach. Zhou Er took the sacrificial spirit and bit her lips hard, feeling like she was dreaming. This is a gift, an extremely precious gift given to her by Zhang Yi. She didn't really care whether she became Ypsilon or not, because she is a doctor, a messenger in white who heals everyone. Women always like to receive gifts, especially extremely precious gifts given to them by the person they love. When Zhang Yi gave the sacrificial spirit to Liu Bo Ran and Yang Xian, Zhou Bo Er understood very well, but it would be a lie to say that she didn't feel disappointed at all. Therefore, Zhou O, who received the spirit of the sacrifice at this time, was very happy. "Thank you, dear." Zhou Er smiled gently, her face like a blooming lily. Seeing this, Zhang Yi's expression became gentle. "You deserve it. There is only one left." Zhang Yi looked at Uncle Yu and Fatty Su. Before he could speak, Fatty Su raised his hand and said, "Boss, don't consider me. Give this sacrificial spirit to Uncle Yu." Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. "Oh? You are so conscious." Fatty Su scratched the back of his head and laughed. "Haha, boss. I am very self-aware. My combat quality is the worst in our team, so this thing should be given to Uncle Yu, who can play the biggest role." In fact, Zhang Yi also calculated this way. Fatty Su's talent is not bad, and he is a person of ice and snow. If he can become Ypsilon, he may be able to grow to the level of Morana. Morana's ability to block the field with absolute zero and manipulate ice and snow on a large scale to affect the battlefield really amazed Zhang Yi when they met for the first time. However, he did not have a good fighting mentality. On the contrary, it was Uncle Yu, the iron-blooded soldier's will, that made his performance on the battlefield very eye-catching. But after hearing what Fatty Su said, Uncle Yu shook his head. "No, let's give this sacrificial spirit to Chunlei. I plan to take the path of mechanical ascension, which is more suitable for me." He admitted that in the past he had indeed pursued different fields and kept moving forward. It was only after experiencing a war with the mechanical civilization that he realized that there was such a way to go. "My body has been transformed. As long as Miss Liu applies the technology of mechanical civilization to me, my strength will be as good as that of Ypsilon. So, let's give this sacrificial spirit to Chunlei." Zhang Yi folded his hands and placed them under his chin. Uncle Yu, have you thought it through? If you transform your body and try to ascend mechanically, you'll get cyberpsychosis. Based on some information from Yichigul and others, Zhang Yi learned the reason for the destruction of their civilization, which was the entire race's shift to mechanization. As a result, he gradually lost his humanity and chose the path of self-destruction. Zhang Yi didn't want to see Uncle Yu turned into a mechanical monster. Uncle Yu nodded. This is the path I chose myself, and I believe it is the most suitable for me. Moreover, he looked at Lu Bo-ran and smiled with his big white teeth. I believe in Miss Lu's skills even more. Lu Shaoran stuck out his tongue. Don't worry. I will do my best to help Uncle Yu. If you know the limits, there won't be any problems. Zhang Yi nodded and raised his left hand towards Fatty Su. In that case, I'll give you the sacrificial spirit. Fatty Su hesitated, with surprise and fear in his eyes. Is it a waste if you give it to me? In fact, there are many better candidates than me. For example, Bailey. Even Xiao Honglian and Gao Wu have stronger wills than me. Fatty Su was very doubtful about his own abilities. It was difficult for a man who had been a fat otaku for half his life to build up self-confidence quickly. What's more, these three have always been well protected by Zhang Yi. Just take it if you give it to me, Zhang Yi said loudly, and then his tone became gentle. I never waste a grain of rice. Whatever I eat, my brothers eat. Now it's your turn even if we have to queue up. I give it to you, because I trust you. Lu Ran stared at Fatty Su and said slowly, we really lack an Epsilon-level alien of the ice and snow system. These words were incoherent, and Yang Xinxin understood the meaning of her words. Rand, are you talking about that? The two smiled at each other. Yes, that's it. The others were confused. I know you two are very smart, but can you please consider that there are other ordinary primates here? Yang Xinxin explained, what Ran wants to talk about is superconductor materials. Superconducting materials refer to materials that have zero electrical resistance and are completely anti-magnetic. This material does not exist under normal conditions. Theoretically, it can only be developed under absolute zero conditions. This is a theoretical substance. Once the technology of superconducting materials is mastered, it will be an unimaginable leap for human technology. Simply put, the volume conversion rate is 100%. There is no loss in the process of current transmission. Lu Ran said excitedly, as long as we solve this problem, the source problem will be completely gone. Zhang Yi understood. Under normal circumstances, superconductivity is impossible. But if Fatty becomes an Epsilon-class ice-type alien, he can create an environment close to superconductivity. That is, absolute zero. Is that what you mean? Yang Xinxin said, absolute zero is theoretically impossible to achieve. Even Morana only made the movement of molecules extremely slow, but did not make them completely still. Even so, it can greatly improve the efficiency of volume conversion. That is to say, after Fatty Su was promoted to Epsilon, he provided great help to Ran in the industrial field. After hearing this, Fatty Su was stunned for a moment, because he didn't understand anything about superconductors or energy conversion. Although he didn't understand, he felt that it seemed very powerful. And this matter has a lot to do with whether or not he can be promoted to Epsilon. All of a sudden, he felt like he had become important. Fatty Su puffed out his chest proudly, patting it until it vibrated. Ms. Lu, leave this matter to me. I will work hard for our team until my death. Zhang Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head, but still handed over the sacrificial spirit. The speed at which this stuff is absorbed depends on the person. For the next period of time, don't worry about anything else and just absorb it well. Zhou Baier and Fatty Su nodded seriously, their eyes filled with anticipation for the future. There was a mysterious light in Lu Ran's eyes, and he walked over and patted Fatty Su on the shoulder. Chun-Lei, hurry up and break through. There's something else I need you to do. Fatty Su scratched his head. Hey, what's the matter? Lu Shaoran took a deep breath, looked at Zhang Yi next to him, and said, It will be a huge project to completely integrate those demon god bodies and the bodies of the king of mechanical civilization into our battle armor. A light flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. One of the biggest gains of this trip was obtaining the most advanced technology of mechanical civilization. The main development of mechanical civilization is scientific and technological power. The extremely powerful mecha makes Zhang Yi very jealous. Especially now that he has obtained Yichigel's body, if he integrates it into Zhang Yi's Qianlong armor for upgrading and transformation, then the improvement it brings to him it will reach a very terrifying level. Fatty Su quickly nodded in agreement. Afterwards, Zhou Baier and Fatty Su each went to absorb the spirit of the sacrifice. Yang Xinxin and Uncle Yu were responsible for looking after them to prevent any accidents during the absorption process. The others were busy following Zhang Yi's instructions. After arranging everything at home, Zhang Yi started to activate the communication system. In a short period of time, the number of messages he received had exceeded 999. Everyone came to him, wanting to hear what happened in Chernobyl. Zhang Yi knew that he had to explain things clearly to those people because if he said nothing, people would think that they had gained huge benefits from behind the light gate. He needed to disguise himself, knowing that he was well prepared, so he would not be afraid of others knowing the truth behind the light gate. The first contact was with Shengjing District. Zhang Yi sent a message to Guan Longyue and Shang Dawen, as they were the ones who actually made decisions on Xingjing's affairs. As for Meng Yuanjun, they would let the two of them convey his message afterwards. After the pleasantries, Shang Dawen went straight to the point and asked Zhang Yi, "What happened in Fremont? Did the mechanical civilization win in the end? Will they pose a threat to Huaxu country?" Zhang Yi had already discussed the countermeasures with Yang Xinxin, so when he answered, he deliberately said in a nervous tone. The general course of events was. He told the compiled story again, his tone solemn, as if something big was really going to happen. If Yichigel wins, I don't know what he'll get from the great god-level civilization. But no matter how you think about it, he will be a huge threat to human civilization. So, we must be prepared to deal with the war that may come at any time. It seemed like he said something, but he didn't say anything at all, because these were all made up by him and there is no key information. But Shang Dawen and the others couldn't help but believe it. Sure enough, Shang Dawen frowned. "Hun Dun, are you hiding something from us?" This was not the first time he had dealt with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi deliberately kept silent for a moment, then slowly began to speak. "Some things are my personal secrets. I'm sorry I won't tell you. But I can guarantee that I will never harm the interests of Huaxu country. In short, believe what I say. It's absolutely right." The threat he was referring to was the resurrected Druk. In the warning from the Yihan tribe, it was mentioned that this was the biggest threat to humanity.